wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic podcast. This is a podcast where we explore the ancient philosophy of Stoicism and apply it to modern life, and explore other topics as well that lead to the flourishing life. My name is Steve, your host. I'm a biology teacher, a dad, a doodler on guitar, not a musician really, but you'll hear my songs at both the beginning of this episode and little fills throughout the episode. And just a guy trying to navigate life. And I make mistakes. I make compromises that maybe I shouldn't have, and so on and so forth. I am not the perfect Stoic. I am just trying to get better as I go. Last week we talked a bit about how two of the great philosophers from the late Stoa, the Roman Stoa, what they had to say about starting in this philosophy. So we heard from Seneca, who was an advisor to Emperor Nero, a bit of a controversial figure just because of his involvement in Nero's regime, as well as Epictetus, who is a slave turned philosopher. Now, Seneca recommended that the first thing we do is overcome our fear of death. If you liberate yourself of that fear, then lots of possibilities open up to you and lots of anxiety go away. Epictetus recommended that we overcome our aversions to things outside of our power, and death is most assuredly in that category. It is outside our power. It is inevitable. And therefore, it is not considered to be an evil in Stoicism because it is outside our power. It is natural. And what we're going to do this week is look into the meditations of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who was influenced by Epictetus, to see basically into his journal how he talked to himself about anxiety and death and how to overcome that fear. Before we do, I'd like to go to a little bit of listener feedback. Hannah called in, sent me a MP3 file. You can do the same thing by shooting me a recording off your phone to sundaystoic@gmail.com. And we're also going to hear from Michael, who wrote into the show.
Hi, Steve. My name is Hannah Morell. I'm coming to you from Salem, Oregon. I am on a hiking trail in the rain. You may hear my dog go by occasionally. I figured it couldn't be a nicer place to think Stoic thoughts than an Oregon trail in the rain. So I'm a little behind on my podcast, and I was listening to your podcast from mid last month about improving your morning routines, and so I thought I would pass along to you a tool that I teach to others, and I've used myself quite a bit to improve not just my morning routines, but lots of routines. So I'm a financial wellness advisor. I help people change their relationships with their money. And that involves a lot of, like, the mechanical tools of money. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that. That was my doggo Daisy shaking her collar. So I help people with learning mechanical tools of money, which is fun and nerdy. But we also talk a lot about our relationships with money, which involves talking about behavior and emotion. So in doing that, I employ a lot of Stoic tools. They don't know that I'm doing that, which is okay. I don't care. And it might work less good if I was using big words like premeditatio malorum and stuff like that. So I just sneak those tools in a nice sneaky way. So I use lots of Stoic tools, from the Stoic ideal man to premeditatio malorum to like hardships. So I'm going to teach you the tool that sits on top of a really big tool. But this little tiny tool is just a great way to kind of start thinking about our future selves. It combines the ideal man with something called future thought, which is both from a behavioral economics, I believe, and psychology as well. So the tool goes that you basically just want to start thinking about your future self, and in your case, your morning self. So thinking of tomorrow morning, what would be some things that would make your life easy tomorrow morning? So like you, I've never, ever been a morning person, although I had plenty of opportunities. My dad was a military guy. I was in the military. If anything will turn you into a morning person, it's that. But no, I'm definitely not a morning person. So I just often am pondering, what are some things that would make my life easier tomorrow morning? Would it be backing into my parking spot tonight, which I do now routinely? Would it be setting up my coffee? Would it be getting my clothes laid out? Anything like that. And it can be very small and very silly. In fact, the smaller and sillier the steps we take are, the better that they seem to work. So the best way to find out what would be easiest for you tomorrow morning would be to think about what would have been easy for you to do this morning. And as people start to develop this little habit, this little ritual of considering their future selves, lives start to get much, much easier. Little tools like this are one of the things I use to help people crack down on procrastination, which is always there waiting for us. And that's the tie-in back to the money, because when we're procrastinating on other things in our lives, we're most certainly procrastinating on our money things. So I would encourage you and your listeners to just start to kind of move through the world thinking about how we can best serve our future selves. We spend a lot of time worrying about, concerned about, and in service of our present selves, like our right now selves, like the right now that you are right this second listening to this, without doing much consideration for our future selves. So that would be my recommendation, to start playing a game, maybe 3 times a day. Start playing a little challenge with yourself. What are some nice things that you can do for tomorrow morning, Steve? And the silly and smaller they are, the better they work. Some of them will stick as rituals and some of them will not. That's okay. Thank you. I adore your podcast, and I've gotten a lot of use out of it. It sent me back to, that book where I thought I saw something like that, and I'll go and research and be a nerd on the books too, and of course the Google machine. But thank you, Steve. Please keep up your good work. I absolutely love hearing your family, quote unquote, interrupt you while you're podcasting, and I hope this wasn't too distracting with me walking in the rain and the dog. Thank you very much. Bye.
Michael writes in to talk about work-life balance, an episode I did quite a while back. Michael's working through the back catalog of the Sunday Stoic podcast, and he recommends the following: to really track your tasks and prioritize. Figure out what the most important things are in your to-do list, and to conquer those immediately. So, for example, when he goes to work, he does not check email. He has the most important tasks lined up to hit right away. And then before he goes home, he reviews what he got done during the day and makes a list for the following morning. And when he gets home, he hits the high priority life tasks before he, as he says, goes down the rabbit hole of distractions like TV and social media. So you have to figure out what's important in your life. Oh, is it family? Is it mowing the grass? What are those things that are really important for your day? And focus on those things before you even think about hitting the on button on any of your devices. And then, once again, at the end of the day, prioritize, adjust your list, and get ready to go for the next day. And he said that really helped him to get his work-life balance in order. So thank you so much for the kind words about listening to the show, everybody. And please, the show thrives when you write in and share how you are progressing. This isn't the Steve show. It's a show on Stoicism. I just happen to be the focal point because I have the microphone. But I would happily hear from you as much as you want to contribute. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 9, Chapter 3. Do not despise death, but accept it willingly. Look upon it as part of the product of nature, and one of those things which Providence has been pleased to order, for such as are youth and age, growth and manhood, down and gray hairs, pregnancy and birth, and all natural actions and incidents of life. So also is dying. A wise man, therefore, must neither run giddily nor impatiently and contemptuously to his grave. He must look upon death as nature's business, and wait her leisure as he does, or the progress and maturity of other things, for as you wait for a child to come into the world when it is ready. So, you should stay in the other case till things are ripe, and your soul drops out of the husk of her own accord. But if you stand in need of a vulgar remedy to soothe the mind, consider then what sort of world and what sort of customs you will be rid of. It is true, you are not to fall foul upon mankind, but to treat them with kindness and gentleness. But still, you may remember that you will not be leaving men just of your own mind and fancy.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 6, number 32.
The greater part of your trouble lies in your fancy, and therefore you may free yourself from it when you please. I will tell you which way you may move much more freely, and give yourself elbow room. Take the world into your contemplation, and consider its eternal duration, and the swift change of every single thing in it. Consider how near the end of all things lies to their beginning. But when the ages before our birth and after our death are both infinite and immeasurable.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 8, number 29.
Rub out the colors of your imagination. Do not suffer your passions to make a puppet of you. Confine your care to the present. Look through that which happens to yourself or another. Distinguish the parts of your subject and divide them into casual and the material element. Think upon your last hour, and do not trouble yourself about other people's faults, but leave them with those that must answer for them.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 8, number
58. He that dreads death is either afraid that his senses will be extinguished or altered. Now, if you have no faculties, you will have no feeling. But if you have new perceptions, you will be another creature, and will not cease to live.
So, Marcus advises a couple of strategies to overcome anxiety and fear of death. One, of course, we're trying to accept death. And how do we do that? We reflect that it is completely natural, like a seed falling out of a husk. It is part of the natural change, just like growing up, changing from child to adolescent to adult. And he advises that we wait for it. We don't run toward it or run shrieking away from it. It will come when it is ready. So he's not really talking about the open door or suicide if things get unbearable here. He's just talking about going with the flow until it's time to go. And then he says if that's not good enough for you, if you need a more vulgar remedy, to remind yourself that the world you're leaving is full of people that annoy you. And it's not just people you love. It'll be a release from things that are difficult to withstand. He also says that your troubles are in your mind. The fear of death and any other kind of anxiety are really things in your mind to let them go. Remember how old the world is and how close to the end of things their beginnings are. So when things start and end, it's really a blink of time compared to the age of the universe. Nothing lasts long. One approach to this might be to remind yourself that this is the only life you have, and when you die, that's likely it, right? The lights are off. So how would you live your life if you knew that to be true? Well, you would take advantage of every moment that you can, do all the things that you want to do, tell everyone that you love them whenever you can, but also live as virtuously as you can. You know, if you are religious, live like you're trying to get to heaven, or if you're not, just, you're living the best way you can to be the best person you can in that limited time that you have. He also says, once again, to control your imagination. Try not to let it run wild. Don't be a puppet to your passions. That's really important. The passions, once again, not things that you are called to do. If you know you are a great teacher, that's not a passion. The passions are emotions that control you. Usually negative emotions that control you. He said, don't pay attention to other people's faults. Pay attention to yourself. Often reflect on your last hour on earth to remind yourself
that things will end. Therefore, that will be the drive for you to let go of your passions and to not spend time gossiping about others, but to work on yourself. That'll help you to overcome anxiety. You're focusing on the present moment as much as possible. This is very important. You're focusing on now because you can't be virtuous yesterday and you can't be virtuous tomorrow. Every breath is a new start for you to live virtuously. And then he says, you will at the end of life either be extinguished and have nothing to worry about because there is no pain, there is no suffering, there is no anything if you're just extinguished, or you will still be alive in a new form, and therefore you'll still be alive. So one of those two things is true. So death is no evil and is nothing to be concerned with. Kind of like I said, you either live as well as you can in the time you have, as virtuously as possible, and with intention, telling everyone you love them, doing good for others, etc. And then when you're dead, you're dead. Or you can think of it as, when I die, I might have a new chance. But if that's the case, then you probably ought to try to be the best person you can right now, too. There's no getting out of being the best person you can, right? So, we need to take some of this to heart, reflect that death is a natural process. And we're trying to live according to nature. It's part of it. It's part of the package deal. And it can be scary and terrifying. And we don't know how well we stand up as Stoics until we're dead. What does that mean? It means if you live pretty well, but on your deathbed you freak out and you scream and you rant and rave about not wanting to die, and you're not accepting it, then you've kind of blown it. Being a Stoic is a bookend. It ends. People know how Stoic you were when you're done. That's when the story ends, and when you can be your Stoicism could be judged. Of course, we're not worried about the opinions of others, but if you could watch yourself from the time you start being a Stoic till your last breath, you would know whether or not you did it. It's kind of rough, but this is the real world. It's not for sissies, right? But we can do this together. We're all in the same boat. We don't have time to treat each other like crap. We need to work together. We need to work with the world we live in. We need to do a good job and not let ourselves get soft and complacent. All right, please review the show on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to it on. That way others will find it, share it online and whatnot. And you can support the show on Patreon and all that good stuff. But more importantly, write in, email me MP3s or call the number at the end of the show and leave me a voicemail and help to enhance the show that way. That would be great. And I may be posting some readings on Google Drive soon and sharing a link with you all, looking for volunteers to do some readings to get some more audience participation in the show, if I can find the time. Everything is fate permitting, and for example, last night I got about 4 hours of sleep because of my mind was racing. Once again, I can't control everything in my head. I'm not a great Stoic in that sense, right? And my son woke up too and couldn't sleep. So I do what I can when I can. And thank you for hanging in there with me. And keep on trucking and carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to The Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review The Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com or by leaving a voicemail at 501-503-3132. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, carpe diem.